So today my guest is Simon Puleston Jones, the co-founder of the platform WokenUp. I spoke to Giovanna Jagger last week. As you remember, that was the episode number 25, and we mentioned multiple times this platform. So today I invited the co-founder, Simon. Thank you very much for joining this invitation, and I'm very happy to talk to you today. Shall we start? Tell me a little bit more about the platform itself. What does it do? Who and what is it for?
Thanks, Anna. And firstly, thank you for having me on your podcast. So what the WokenUp platform looks to do is to solve the problem of fragmentation, which is to say that the people, the companies, the non-profits that are taking action on the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and more broadly are taking action on the social and environmental causes that matter to you, are fragmented across thousands of online and offline communities. Online, we're fragmented across Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and so on and so forth. Offline, we're a member of this club, this group, that group. But no one's really bringing the world of sustainability, or even much more broadly than that, the world of causes, what you care about, onto a single platform. So if LinkedIn is about your brain, then WokenUp is about your heart.
Okay, so do I understand it correctly? I have registered at the platform. Is this platform only for those working on 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or for someone else, only for the professionals in the sphere of environmental and social issues? Who is it for?
Great question. So it is both B2B, so professionals, but also B2C, which is to say it's for everyone. And why? Well, for companies, they are increasingly waking up to the fact that people now want to buy from and work for and invest in companies with purpose, companies that are taking action on the causes that matter to their stakeholders, whether that be climate or sustainability or diversity or charity engagement, community outreach, whatever it might be. And this information is getting lost on LinkedIn, and we can talk about that in a little while. But in terms of who is it for? Well, for companies, it's the platform to show the action that you're taking and the impact that you're making on the social and environmental issues that matter to your stakeholders. And that may or may not be through the lens of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But given that no one is bringing together the SDG community online, and it is 17 simple goals around which to organize content around social and environmental change, it struck us as an excellent benchmark around which to organize information on the platform, and also to use our platform to just raise general public awareness of the SDGs. And that's going to be important if we're going to attain these goals by 2030. Then for nonprofits, it's very much a platform to raise awareness of what you're doing, of your cause, a platform to reach out to individuals and organizations alike to help you to get the resources that you need to deliver on your mission. And there are various tools that we can talk about for that. And then for individuals, this is really about legacy and finding your purpose. Increasingly, we're moving away from a culture that is about me, me, me. The current coronavirus crisis is doing something extremely powerful, which is reconnecting us with our communities and reigniting in many that desire to help others ahead of what we've been doing perhaps for the last 10 years, which is very sort of consumer-led, very me, me, me led, and me having everything I want when I want on demand. But when it comes to times of crisis, and just more generally, we actually really appreciate that sense of community. So this is about creating a space where individuals who are interested in helping others, in giving back, in taking action and making a difference on the causes that matter to them, can come to tell their story of what they're doing about the issues that are close to their heart, to show the impact that they're making, and to find opportunity to make a difference.
So in short, like, would it be correct to say, if I'm a business, I can say, I'm doing this and that, and I'm looking for someone. So in a way, in this particular post, the platform will work for me in a way like a LinkedIn. If I'm an NGO and I'm looking for volunteers, for example, because I'm going to create some event, then people can engage with me in that way and say, hey, I am available that Saturday around that time, so I want to join you on that cause. Is it right that people come to that platform to find both resources, people, financial resources too?
So it's more, so yes, you're right that it's partly about telling your story of what you're doing on the causes that matter to you and your stakeholders. That's a large part of it, regardless of what user type you are. And then partly, as you say, it's about finding the resources that you're after. We don't currently facilitate donations. We don't currently have an impact investment part of the platform. But we do, in the next couple of weeks, have a jobs board, which will be marketing as the jobs board for the SDGs and the jobs board for the non-profit sector. And we will be launching a volunteering portal in the next few weeks. And we're looking at enabling you to have private groups like you can on Facebook and elsewhere. Right. So yes, so one organization has described it as LinkedIn for ESG. WokenUp is equally looking to solve this problem of fragmentation for the non-profit sector, which is we've got social networks for everything, but bizarrely we don't have a social network for charities or those who are charitably minded. That is what WokenUp is, because it is, if you like, the opposite of Instagram. Rather than being about me, it's about we, and how can I help you?
Right. Geographically, who can register at the platform, and how does it work for, let's say, me sitting here in Ukraine and you in the UK? How do we connect?
So geographically, it is a global social network. So anyone, anywhere in the world can register. We have people from over 40 countries already on the platform. When you come on to WokenUp, you create a organizational, you create a profile, and that profile will tell me a little bit about you. There's a free text box of 2,500 characters in which you can write whatever you like about you as an individual or you as an organization, so that I can better understand the way that you're looking to help others or are helping others. And then on your profile page, there are 5 different ways in which you can tag a post. You can tag it to a United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. You can tag it to a hashtag. You can tag it to an action tag, i.e. just if you're taking a specific action, tag that action so that I can see what action you're taking on the causes that matter to you. And then the last 2, which are particularly helpful during this coronavirus crisis, is you can tag your post by the help that you're offering or the help that you're seeking. So how can you connect with me? Well, you may find me when you look on the platform and you're searching by SDG or searching by hashtag. You can search for me by name in the search function. You can search for me more locally than that by saying I'm looking for an individual in London or an individual in the UK. And when you come through to my profile page, you have the option to either connect with me or follow me. And once we're connected, we can message one another.
Mm-hmm. You keep mentioning coronavirus, and I cannot also not to mention it. You launched the platform quite recently, right?
Yeah, that's right. We launched the minimum viable product at the end of November in 2019, and we've just completely overhauled the platform during February, shortly before this crisis really ramped up.
Mm-hmm. How do you see, if you were following what people post, what they share, what changes did you see since its launch and now with the coronavirus? What are people looking for specifically in the ESG and sustainability matters?
Candidly, I think that ESG and sustainability are having a bit of a pause during this crisis. The people are much more focused on the more immediate issues of offering help to and seeking help from their communities. And what WokenUp enables you to do much more powerfully than a WhatsApp group or Facebook is because you can tag your posts by the help that you're offering and the help that you're seeking. You can use WokenUp much more efficiently than other platforms to find the help that's on offer or to put help out there. So that's what we're starting to see people really want to use the platform for, is on the individual side to make the most of this functionality around the help that's being offered and the help that's being sought. It's not the entirety of the original reason why the platform was conceived. It was very much conceived about bringing together people who are taking action on the causes they care about. But this functionality is there. It is an improvement over what Facebook and WhatsApp have to offer, and that's how some people are now choosing to use the platform. So I think we're going to have to stay true to what our platform's for, whilst also making sure that we're responding to the demand from our users as to how they want to use the platform in the current societal situation in which we find ourselves.
Right. So is it possible that the users with their actions will change the original purpose of the platform? Is it possible?
At the moment, we're not intending to do that. We're intending to keep this functionality as a subset of the wider platform. Why? Because the platform has been conceived ultimately to assist with the commercial delivery of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And if we were to pivot so that we just become a platform for helping, offering help or seeking help in your local community, then we've lost that larger purpose for which we've been created. And what we want to be able to do is when people are through this crisis, or our minds are turning away from the more immediate problems that we all have towards, again, how can we help others? Now that we've woken up to how society really wasn't working when we were all focused on ourselves, and we've really woken up to how, as a society, we need to be helping each other. We need to be taking action on the causes that matter to one another. There needs to be a platform now to help mobilize people and inspire people to drive the change that they want to see in the world. So yeah, WokenUp has been created at just the right time to respond to that need, which will be huge once we're all back to work and back in something that's nearer to normal. But one of the questions that's out there is, what is normal going to look like after this crisis? Are we going to go back to a world of shareholder primacy and people looking after themselves above everybody else? Or are we going to move to a society that is perhaps more caring, more collaborative than what we saw before? And I firmly believe that it'll be the latter. And WokenUp exists to empower that new society spirit so that we can all drive change together.
Yeah, I was very curious a couple of days ago. The question really struck me. We are currently going through a massive transformation globally. It is, everyone is concerned. It doesn't matter your status, your country, your whatever else. Your money doesn't matter. Famous people get sick. And it is actually awakening. We are wakening up. The world we will get after this transformation, do you think collectively we will develop into a more caring humans? Will we start caring about the depleting our resources? I think part of what is happening now is because we really shifted the world with the overconsumption, with depleting resources, towards out of balance, towards something that we did not expect, we did not predict. When it's all over, when we're back to, so to say, normal, uh, what is your prediction? Do you think globally we will take more care of the resources? Will we finally move towards the green economy? Will the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals be, something more than just a document that is, some people just find good to mention, but not everyone even working in the environmental sector truly understand what it is. What do you think is awaiting us?
I think what's awaiting us, as I say, is this awakening of what really matters. And what really matters is not our job title. It's not having a big house and lots of cars and expensive holidays and so on and so forth. What really matters is ultimately looking after each other, looking after the society and environment in which we live, and thinking that bit harder about what is the society and environment in which we want to live, and what are we each individually doing to build that society. And that's what the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are. They're a blueprint of what humanity could look like by the end of this decade, and they're an extraordinarily attractive blueprint. I think one of the challenges is that we always look to someone else to be the change. We're always blaming companies for not doing enough, blaming governments for not taking the right action. And actually, it all starts with ourselves. It's a truism to say that we should be the change that we want to see in the world. We should lead by example, because if we do so collectively and individually, we'll get that change that we want. So I think one of the silver linings that will come out of this crisis is a greater sense of community. Another one is it'll help this generation, today's people, feel that little bit more acutely what it is going to be like for our children and grandchildren to be living in a climate that is significantly worse than the climate that we've enjoyed through our lifetimes. We are, through this crisis, being put into the shoes of our children and grandchildren. And if one swaps the coronavirus crisis for the climate crisis, we can perhaps better appreciate how important it is to take action on climate so that our children and grandchildren don't have to suffer through climate what we are now suffering through COVID-19.
Right. How long did it take to develop the platform, and what was the so-called trigger to create it?
It took 2 years, and the trigger was a date with a beautiful woman who 365 days later would become my wife, and 9 months after that, mother to my third child. So Renee, to give my wife her name, mentioned during that date that she was a life coach in her spare time, and she encouraged me, given I'd been through a divorce earlier in the year, to think about being life coached. And I did, and what I got out of the life coaching was that where I was very focused on me, which frankly I had been for the last 20 years, life doesn't work so well. But the things that I'd found most fulfilling were where I was helping others and taking action on the causes that mattered to me, whether that be through mentoring or being a charity trustee or running a half marathon for charity. And I was invited through the life coaching, firstly, to say all of that in a single sentence. I'm Simon Ann. So I'm Simon, and I'm all about giving back and making a difference, which is how I summarized that realization for myself. And I was also invited to then create a community project as part of the next life coaching course that breathed life into this idea that I'm Simon and I'm all about giving back and making a difference, with one caveat, which is that this project had to be about anyone else in the world other than me. And my immediate reaction was, God, I really don't know where to start with that. I mean, I know I'm doing things to give back and make a difference, but in terms of creating a project, I don't know. And I realized in that moment that there are millions of people and organizations who either are or want to help others and make a difference. We increasingly talk about purpose, finding our purpose, either individually or being a company with purpose. But how do I go about doing that? What does that mean? What are other people doing? How can I find inspiration? If I want to make my business more sustainable, what are the options that are out there? If I'm an individual and I want to do something for the benefit of others, whether it be mentoring or volunteering or finding a job at a company that's going to inspire me, that shares my values, what are the options out there? And I realized there's nowhere that answers all of these questions all in one place. And that was the opportunity to really create a social network for those with purpose, a social network that is, if you like, the inverse of Instagram, that's about other people more than it's about me. It's about helping, it's about taking action. And I saw a change in society. So the short answer is it took 2 years. I spent a year pretty much holding down a day job as a lobbyist running a trade association on behalf of the world's leading investment banks, lobbying on Brexit for my day job. And then in the evening, working through building prototypes and how I was going to get funding and so on. And then it took the best part of 6 months to get funding I needed. And we just closed the second round. We're hoping to launch a third shortly, but this crisis is going to make that challenging, that's for sure. So 2 years.
And did you have any background before with ESG? Because you just mentioned lobbying pro-Brexit. I don't see how that connects with environmental sustainability and social issues too much.
Yeah, great question. If you'd asked me 3 years ago, what's my legacy looking like, I would have said, if I'm being honest, causing the financial crisis, making rich people richer, and I've just broken the hearts of 2 young children because I've just got divorced. Yeah, that's not a great legacy to be leaving. How did I create that legacy? Well, I was for 20 years a lawyer in the financial services sector, and then for 2014 to 2019 a lobbyist running trade associations for investment banks and stock exchanges and others to help them navigate through post-financial crisis regulations. So I'm a storyteller by background as a lobbyist and a lawyer. So, as you say, how on earth do you go about doing this? Well, one of the things that the life coaching teaches you is not to be pushed by all that the past tells you you are and are not, but to be pulled towards the possibility of a future that you're creating. Or if I say that slightly differently, when I said to someone, oh, I'm creating this social network, they said to me, who do you think you are? You're not Mark Zuckerberg, you're a lawyer and a lobbyist. And they're absolutely right. I don't have expertise in social media. I don't have expertise in sustainability and ESG, although I have spent the last 20 years in the City of London in financial services, and ESG is particularly focused in financial services these days. But what I have created is the possibility of these United Nations Sustainable Development Goals actually being successfully achieved by 2030. And I have a plan. There are 2 things that are missing from the SDGs at the moment. One is the community being brought together, and that's what WokenUp looks to do. And the other one is a plan. The UN is absolutely right. We need a decade of action if we're going to achieve these 17 goals, from getting rid of hunger, getting rid of poverty, gender equality, action on climate, etc. But what's the plan? There isn't one. So what WokenUp plans to do next year, when we're through the real brunt of this crisis, this coronavirus crisis, is to create 17 advisory boards, 1 for each of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And what we'll be asking those advisory boards to do is to create whatever number of projects are necessary for their Sustainable Development Goal, so that if those projects were successfully completed by 2030, then that SDG will have been completed by 2030, and the underlying 169 targets that together comprise those 17 goals will have been attained. So it's all very well having a goal, but a goal needs a strategy to go actually achieve it. And that's what WokenUp does. It creates a strategy of better connecting the community so it can firstly raise awareness of the goals. It can provide a sense of, yes, we can achieve these goals because we can show what a difference our individual and collective actions are making. And we can find an opportunity to contribute towards attainment of these goals, or indeed just towards building the world in which we want to live, the society in which we want to live, and the environment in which we want to live at the end of this decade. And that is going to be built by what we together and individually do over the next 10 years.
Curious, have you been approached by anyone from the UN regarding?
So we've taken it the other way around, where we've approached the UN in a variety of different bits, from the foundation to the Global Compact. I think one of the challenges that the UN has, just like any large organization, is this coordination and project management piece. So the UN SDGs are pertinent to so many parts of the UN that there's this great desire from those of us that are aware of the goals to really help them make these things happen. And I think there's an increasing feel, rightly or wrongly, that the way that these goals are going to be achieved, and these goals were originally conceived for governments, not for individuals or companies or non-profits, but the way we're actually going to achieve them is if we can mobilize enough individuals, non-profits, and companies, and indeed governments, to take the requisite action. So this needs to be a global effort from all of us, including the UN. But one of the great things the UN has done is it's made the UN SDGs something that is available to all. They don't require you to pay them for a license to associate the SDGs with your business, because the SDGs belong to the world. And this vision of what the world should look like belongs to the world. So what we need to do is to work with the UN and with one another to make these goals come to fruition.
Right. Speaking of the community, kind of a community, not membership, ownership of the platform, are you currently looking for, I know you mentioned for the next year, 17 kind of ambassadors, but at the moment, I don't know, what other plans? Are you looking for ambassadors per country or per sector or something like that for people to coordinate the platform?
Yeah, so there's 17 things I mentioned earlier, were 17 advisory boards, which would be made up of the world's leading foundations and organizations, people who really have expertise in the SDGs, and most importantly, perhaps have the resources to be able to actively contribute towards these SDGs. What we're doing right now, we've just started the process of appointing some advocates for WokenUp, and they're very, very taken with the vision that we have about mobilizing the world and inspiring the world to work together, to collaborate, to create the world in which they want to live in 10 years' time. We unfortunately aren't able to hire all the people that we'd love to hire and pay them a sort of on-market salary, because our resources are finite as a startup. But people nonetheless still want to be able to be a contribution to this vision. And the outlet that we're providing for them is the opportunity to be an advocate for WokenUp, and just to share within their own communities that there's this platform that looks to bring you together with the other people and organizations taking action on the causes that matter to you. And that if we come together and collaborate, we can really drive action to build this world in which we really want to live.
Right. Okay, we are running to the end of our interview. One last question. What would be your one piece of advice for the listeners of Sustainability Explored?
Thank you. I would say, have in mind why you got into sustainability in the first place. Why does it matter to you? And we were talking about being pulled towards a future. My one piece of advice is to have in mind the future that you want for you, for your family and friends, for your community, for society. And just be a champion for that. Be a stand for that, an advocate for the world in which you want to live, and encourage others to join you in building that society, whether it be through WokenUp or some other means, but just be a real stand for the change that you want to see in the world, and remember why you got into this so passionately in the first place.
Thank you so much. Golden words, golden piece of advice. I wish you the best of success with the WokenUp, and I will leave a link to the platform in the description to the podcast. Thanks again for joining me today on this 26th, I cannot believe, 26th episode of Sustainability Explored. Great having you.
Thank you, Anna.
Have a good
thank
day.
you, Anna. All the very best to your listeners at this challenging time.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.